Hi, this is Bill with Galveston Cruise Reviews. My favorite moment of any cruise is that moment when you board. When you give them your set sail pass, or on Royal Caribbean, when you give them your room key, you hear the ding and the chimes, and all of a sudden you're on the ship. That is fantastic. But there's also a least favorite moment. For me, the least favorite part of the cruise is the arrangements to get to and from the cruise. What I want to talk today is how you can do that on Carnival through their Fly2Fun program. The possibility of booking the cruise or the flights directly through the cruise line. Now, what I'm going to say is going to be specific to Carnival's program. However, it's not necessarily specific to Galveston. I'll talk about what I did by booking for Galveston. However, I've also flown out of Miami. I've flown out of Seattle, or cruised out of those places rather, and the same lessons are going to apply in other places. So for the first thing that you need to know about my booking with the Fly2Fun program is you have the option to book it only for your flight to the cruise, or to book it only for your flight home, or to book it both ways. I always arrive early, right? Partially because I want to enjoy whatever pier I'm departing from, in particular Galveston, right? Galveston is one of my favorite cities in the world. So, and because I'm booking early, there was a lot of time constraint. I also happen to have frequent flyer miles I was using. So I booked for a cruise I'm taking a few months from now, the Fly2Fun program back home. And that gives me several advantages. That left me protected in the event of any late flights. Prices were within $4 or $5 of what I was seeing on the websites when I would look directly at the fares on United or on American. So the fares were perfectly competitive. I could pick my own flight. The challenge is that you couldn't pick a flight before 1:30 in the afternoon out of Galveston, but that's fine. You're really, particularly given the drive back into Houston, you'd be cutting it close anyway. So earlier today, for the cruise I'm taking a few months from now, I booked a flight home. That means that if the ship is late coming back, I'm protected. I mean, it's a great option, right? There were some problems, though. One of those problems is the kinds of fares that Carnival offers. They offer what is called a restricted fare, as well as a flexible fare. And on Southwest, they didn't offer a flexible fare. And that's really weird, because the way the Southwest fare structure works, they kind of inherently have a flexible fare, just booking through them directly. So the flexible fares I saw were only available on American out of either Hobby or out of Bush, or on United out of Bush, but that's fine. One of the other problems that I had with the fares was that I couldn't upgrade on it, right? I was only going to be in economy class. If you wonder why that mattered to me, well, here's why it mattered. One, it's my vacation. Sometimes, at the very start or the very end of it, I enjoy kind of the extra benefit of having more space, maybe a free cocktail or whatever. The other thing is, you should always check to see what the fare difference is between economy and first class. I'm probably going to check a couple of bags on this trip. The cost of checking bags plus the economy class ticket was going to cost me more than just buying the first class ticket in the first place. Now, that's not always going to be true, right? But it's absolutely worth checking to see. So the problem with the booking that I made through the cruise line, through Carnival, was that I had no option to upgrade at all, not even when I called in later on. You certainly couldn't do it online. There were some advantages, though. One of the advantages that I talked about earlier is if the ship winds up being late, then they rebook you. And that's great. It wasn't particularly easier, but it wasn't particularly harder than booking it directly through the website. The other thing is they didn't want any payment from me right away. They said they being Carnival said you don't have to pay until 60 days before the flight, even though, and I wound up booking a United flight, I could log into my United account and see it. Even though they already gave me a booking, they didn't want payment until 60 days before. Now, that goes to another one of the problems with the Fly2Fun program, is that when I logged into my cruise planner, they actually wanted the payment 90 days before. So the good news is I didn't have to pay right away. The bad news is that there's kind of an internal contradiction on their website about when you have to pay. As you book the Fly2Fun program, it says on a flexible fare, you don't have to book until 60 days before. but they actually wanted it 90 days before. If you book a restricted fare where you can't make any changes, then you had to pay everything all up front anyway. One of the other things worth checking, it was actually $4 cheaper to book a flexible fare than it was to book a restricted fare. And again, that doesn't mean that it's going to happen all the time, but it was true on my flight. It was true on most of the other flights at the dates I was looking at. So don't automatically assume that the restricted fare is going to be cheaper. Look and see what the flexible fare provides you. The booking process was really easy, right? Like I got to choose specific flights. I then had to pull that up on my United account, but then I was able to choose seats. Ultimately, I wound up canceling the flight, and because I did it within 24 hours, and because I was on a flexible fare, that was fine, right? I called in, I got an incredibly helpful customer service agent. I was on the phone for 16 minutes, but frankly, that included like 11 or 12 minutes of hold time. He canceled it. I wasn't out anything. The reason that I wound up canceling the flight was because I elected to just buy a first class flight on United, because once I checked bags, it was going to be actually cheaper, and I got a little bit of extra comfort right at the end of my trip. The other thing that you need to keep in mind when you're booking flights is you've got to book a car. As a general rule, when I arrive in a port, because I've always arrived a day or two early, I book a private car service. That costs more money, but it's uber convenient. You don't wind up having to wait for other passengers. However, it costs more. I've already booked for my return. I booked the shuttle Carnival has to get us to the airport. That's wound up being $47 to Bush. It's about $9 cheaper to the Hobby Airport. But again, and so that'll be in a mass van with other folks, but that's fine. Sometimes that helps you get off the ship a little bit earlier. And in the scrum, which is getting off the cruise ship, it's a lot easier to find that than it would be to find some sort of a private arrangement that you made to get back to the airport. So, I love that moment when I get on the cruise ship, right? I love hearing my set sail pass ding. I love hearing my card on Royal Caribbean or I think I had a card when I was on Norwegian a few years ago. I love hearing that ding so that you get started, you're on vacation. But before you can get to that point, you've got to get to that point. You've got to get to whatever your pier is. Carnival, with their Fly2Fun program, offers a really good choice. The prices are competitive, it's flexible, it's easy to deal with. The flexible fares weren't more expensive. Ultimately, I elected not to do it because I wanted to fly first class, because ultimately the first class ticket was going to be cheaper. But that doesn't mean it's a bad option. It just means that you need to look at the specifics for your flight. Log in to your cruise planner. You can do it directly online, or you can get one of the incredibly helpful customer service agents like I did. I hope this has been helpful to you. If it is, man, I would love it if you would hit like on the video and subscribe to the notification bell. That helps us out a lot with YouTube. Thanks so much for doing that, and happy cruising.